Hi, and welcome back to the Sales Growth Showcase, where we share insights from some of today's top sales leaders so that you can make more money and be better connected to your customers. I am joined today by Bryan Whittington, who is a managing member of Evergreen Business Services and also the host of the Talent, Sales, and Scale podcast. Bryan, thank you so much for being here.
Hey, thanks so much for having me, Mark. It's a real pleasure.
Why don't you briefly tell us a little bit more about who you are and how you impact others?
Yeah, sure. So I'd say first off, father of six, how I impact others is really our mission statement, which is we look to help communities thrive through entrepreneurship. So we help organizations to grow sales faster, specifically around sales talent, sales development. So how do you do that, execute that well? And then lastly, sales data. So I think that's really how we impact others.
Fantastic. Well, we have, with all of that to pull from, I know we're going to have a fantastic conversation. The first one is, with all of the changes going on over the past year or so, what either are you doing or what are you helping your customers do in order to be able to grow sales today?
Yeah, and I think it comes down to adaptation and also being able to rise above the noise. And so the biggest things that we're really looking to do is we look at sales as being able to grow out in three ways. If you get the absolute best sales talent, they're adaptable, they're gritty, they're growth minded, right? Where they can always adapt and learn. So really finding the right talent is what we're finding is critically important. And the beauty is, and this is going to come down a little bit later, I think, is because we're all virtual now, that talent pool is so much larger. So that's one piece. The second piece is, how do you stand out? So if you're doing the sales development, the demand generation, it's really expensive, especially with all the changes with Google and SEO and marketing. How do you stand above it? And what we found is the telephone still works. So being able to have an effective, quick, succinct message on that telephone to get somebody to engage into a conversation is really the second way we're helping our clients. And the last one is data. Oh my gosh, is it important? And if you can't get in contact with the person, I don't care how good of a salesperson you have, how many sales enablement tools that you have, if you don't have the right data with a direct number or cell phone number, you're really in a lot of trouble. So I think those are the three key changes that people need to get up with, is expand your reach on talent, be more succinct in your messaging on the sales development side, and lastly, make sure your data is good.
Fantastic. Well, thank you for sharing that with us. And without question, I do want to talk a bit more in a minute here about that opportunity associated with being able to have talent anywhere with this new virtual marketplace. But first, let's talk about, maybe dig into a little bit more about a common challenge that you still see as a struggle today for both you and your clients that you work with.
Yeah, I mean, sales starts with a conversation. So I think the common challenge is how in the world do you engage in those conversations? And it's how do you personalize that initial outreach, yet be able to do it at scale? And if I'm personalizing at scale, how many people do I need? What type of technologies do I need to utilize? And then, is that cost of customer acquisition worthwhile? Do I need to change my go-to-market strategy? Do I need to change how I approach each and every sale? Do I need to go deeper and wider into my current client base to offer new products? So there's a number of different ways to take it. But I mean, I think it really gets down to knowing your numbers, making sure that you have a good answer to stand above the noise to be able to execute that.
Right. So that helps us with the challenge of being able to find the right talent, equip them with the right message, and start to rise above the noise with a good, strong message. How about now let's talk a bit more in detail about the opportunity that this new remote, the virtual sales workplace has brought to us. Can you share more about your thoughts on the opportunity?
So there's several. The one that comes instantly to mind is your total talent pool. I mean, you can go anywhere that you would like now, and anybody with a computer, with a, talking to you just like this, you can hire somebody anywhere in the world, or anywhere in the U.S. If you're U.S. based, and they can be effective. Now, the key piece off of that is ensuring that in hiring the right person, that you set them up for success. So if they're remote, you want to make sure your systems and processes are in place to be able to allow them to flourish. They also can't feel as though they're on an island. And you also have to have some systems in place, not to micromanage, but inspect what you expect. And if you're just throwing somebody out there and saying, hey, good luck, come back with a couple of sales, it's not going to work. But really, that overarching talent pool, global talent pool, is amazing. The other side of that is I can now change up the way I sell. I can sell the whole entire pipeline on video. I don't necessarily need to jump on airplanes anymore. And I think this gets into a generational play too, that younger folks are fine with doing everything through video. The older folks, I think you and I might have a couple of gray hairs, right, Mark? The older folks, I think because they've been forced, they now are more comfortable in doing everything virtually. So even that older generation, my generation, might be comfortable with doing everything online. So I think that really reduces the cost, the stress, and the length of sales cycles. So I think those two would probably be the most impactful of global sales talent and the shortening of sales cycle time by leveraging this technology, or being able to do everything virtually.
Well, thank you for the generosity in suggesting I only have a couple of gray hairs. I appreciate that. But I think that's so important now that we organizations really start to look at their workforce as a global workforce, and being able to find the best talent wherever they are. But your insights on making sure that you have the right processes to be able to measure those folks and communicate with those folks to make sure that you're enabling them to be as successful as possible, as opposed to just being on an island somewhere in South Carolina, if that's where they happen to be.
Right. Exactly.
Now, let's say you're at an event, a networking event, or a conference, and somebody comes up to you, they introduce themselves, they say, well, I'm fairly new to this vice president of sales role, and I'm a little nervous. Do you have any nugget of advice you can share with me? What's one thing that you would go to and share with them?
Yeah, that's a pretty broad-based question there. So I would say, depending on their tenure, how are you always recruiting? How are you identifying what your critical 1, 3, 5 key goals are per quarter? What are the measurements that you're going to make sure that need to get done on a daily, weekly, and monthly basis in order to hit that goal? And how are you transforming, if you're new to a VP of sales role, how are you transforming from a likely a manager, or maybe even a contributor? How are you changing from that tactical, shorter term look to more of that long-term strategic play? How are you constantly learning? So I would ask more questions than just give advice. And if they're able to answer those questions, they'll be pretty darn good.
That in itself is a wonderful piece of advice. Ask more questions. I love that. They can't fail as a leader if they're always asking questions, both of their people and their peers. So thank you for sharing that.
You bet.
So, Bryan, I really enjoyed the conversation. Thank you for sharing the insights. No doubt that you're connected to folks, other successful sales leaders like yourself, that would have some insights to share. Is there one or two that come to mind immediately that I should get in touch with and invite on the show? Yeah,
so I would, some lesser known folks, I might reach out to a guy by the name of Ray Muchler. It's a lot of fun, great insights, probably one of the best natural salespeople that I've ever met. from a sales leadership perspective, a guy by the name of Sean Coyle here in Pittsburgh. Really good presenter, really good speaker. Those two are pretty good people to reach out to.
Well, thank you for the recommendation, and I will follow up with you. They sound like anybody that likes to have fun. I enjoy having fun from time to time as well. So I will definitely reach out, and thank you for the recommendations. Bryan, thank you so much for taking the time to join me. Very quick and easy, but the insights that you shared around finding the right talent, putting the right methodology in place, and then pairing it with a strong message that's connected to your customers and then backed up by data. I really appreciate you sharing those insights.
My pleasure. Thanks again for having me on, Mark. And I like the quick hitting, down and dirty, get it done.
Thanks, Bryan. And thank you for joining us. Make sure that you subscribe so that you'll be notified of future episodes. And until next time, I hope you reach invincible success.